and gentlemen, welcome to another brand new episode of the Tech Forward podcast with myself, Jake Youngs, and Mr. Tech over here. Today we are working through fine structures, and all kinds of things about fines from the different entities that rule over us in the real estate world. So Jeff's kind of the whole mastermind behind how this is all put together. But Jeff, where would you like to go with this?
Well, first thing is, we all know that fines suck.
Yes.
Because
they're not fine.
Now, yeah, they're not fine. They're unfine. Yeah. And there are a lot of fine structures out there from the different entities that guide us. Okay? So a few weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that we made a podcast about the different entities that guide us.
Yes.
Okay. So
did that at Sweetwater's for those of you who missed that.
That's right. I remember that one. And by the way, you could go back and view that again and listen to it again. So I just want to remind you how it goes in a nutshell, right? So let's talk about a licensee only, right? Not even a realtor, a licensee. So in other words, you took your 90 hours of pre-licensing credit so that you could then pass the test. And once you pass the test, you go down to ADRE, you pay your $65, whatever it is nowadays. You hang your license with your favorite designated broker, DB, with your brokerage, and boom, you now have the ability to go sell the most valuable asset that anybody will ever own in their lifetime after 90 hours of education.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, Jeff, after I got done with my 90 hours back in 2020, I thought I was ready to rule the world. You know, I learned everything I would ever need to know in that 90 hours, right?
Yeah, no.
No? No. What do you mean, no?
Well, let's put it this way, okay? Considering, right, here in Arizona, that a hairstylist, some that I don't need, but the rest of you do, right?
It's not necessarily a bad problem. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, let me tell you, it saves me a lot on the haircut. But the point that I'm trying to make to you is that you know that they need at least 1,500 hours just to cut something that will mainly come back except for me. Right?
That nice self-roast there.
Thank you. You got it. A little self-deprecation goes a long ways.
I understand the whole 1,500 hours thing, but I mean, come on, Jeff. Like I always say when I bring this up, when I was in kindergarten, I gave myself some pretty good haircuts. I don't know why you need 1,500 hours of education for that. There's a lot of sarcasm in that, by the way.
Yeah. So, but let's take other industries on a serious note, right? If you look at, let's talk about appraisers. Now, very, very, very necessary, right? They're an integral part of our process. Of course, we're the bridge to everything. But did you know they need to work for like a year under a licensed appraiser just so they can do their job properly and they can become licensed themselves?
Really?
Yeah. So if you think about it, these are rules that come up from our government. And once again, all these different professional industries needs all these hours, yet we're sitting here 90 hours just so we could pass the test, and we're expected to be real estate professionals. I'm digressing a little bit, but point is, they definitely don't want me as the commissioner. Now, if you're already licensed, you don't have a problem. But if that ever I was tasked with that, I have to tell you, I'd be like 2 years of under somebody's, basically, they're the guru and they're going to teach you how to do it. And other than that, you ain't practicing real estate. But I'm digressing again. So let's talk about the different entities, which go back and look at that. But let's talk more about the fine structure and how a lot of monies are going out. Okay. Yeah.
Well, first off, actually, I want to pose a question to you. Just simply with these fines, like there's a lot of people that look at the fines that they're paying to Armless or to their realtor association whenever they...
And by the way, those are not fines. Just to let you know.
I'm getting there. Hang tight. So the big question that I have for you is like, these monies that I'm spending on these quote unquote fines or fees, whatever the case may be.
Well, they're quite different. I just want to be sure that we're crystal clear on that, right? Fines is something when you do something wrong. Fees are to belong to, right? So they're quite different. I mean, let's put it this way. It takes a little bit to go get your driver's license. That's a fee. But if you get a ticket, that's a fine. Is that fair?
Yes. So back to focusing specifically on the fines. I'll exclude fees from this. When I pay a fine to somebody because I did something and screwed up, was found guilty of it, where in the world does that money go? Are they just pocketing the cash that I'm paying them, or what in the world happens with it?
That is a great question. So here's how it goes. Once again, let's talk about the different entities that guide us. So, and I'll be quick on this one because they're going to go back and watch the podcast if you already haven't seen it yet. But as a licensee only, so let's talk about non-realtor licensee only. What do we have? 88,000 or something like that as we're talking. So as a licensee across the state, right?
Yeah.
So there are two main entities that guide a licensee in real estate. The first one is going to be the general ARS, so the Arizona Revised Statutes. And I'll give you the best example is Article 26, right? We all know that one. It gives us the ability as a licensee real estate to go ahead and write contracts and forms. Of course, the lawyers, super pissed, by the way. They actually try to fight it. Yeah.
Much to their detriment.
They actually try to fight it back in the day.
Yeah.
And yet it passed, and that was a win for us, and lawyers are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe. But anyways, so we need to abide by those rules. Okay.
Wasn't it like 100 years ago or something by now that they tried to fight that?
I think, I don't know how long Article 26 has been around. Actually, it's a good question. I do not know the answer of that one, but I'll have to research that one, right? I can't know everything. I know. So I'll have to look at the year of Article 26 when that came about. Now, we have another basically set of guidelines that we need to abide by as a licensee, and that is going to be called the Arizona Administrative Code, also known as the AAC. Okay?
So what's the difference between the ARS and the AAC?
Yeah, good question. So ARS, they do have different paragraphs is a bad word, but they have different sections and subsections for each of the for different categories for different professions. It is similar, by the way, just want to let you know, but one goes into much greater detail of what each of the different heads of those commissions, known as the commissioner, have to abide by.
Gotcha.
Okay. So let's talk about, in great detail, the Arizona Administrative Code. So I'll be quick on this. Once again, you go back. So you can go ahead and we happen to have R4, which means Title 4. And Title 4 deals only with the different professions out there. Once again, hairstylists, talking about
police
appraisers,
officers,
things like that. Okay? And then we, as licensees in real estate, happen to fall under the chapter of Chapter 28. So whenever you go to a class, it's going to be R4, meaning Title 4, and then Chapter 28, so R4-28. And then we're going to get into the super nitty-gritty here. And duties to your client, Article 11. And under Article 11, then it even goes deeper. And we usually teach on something called R4, 28, 1101, which is our duties to our client. There's another one we talk about quite a bit, R4, 28, 502, that talks about
advertising.
Marketing. Okay. So now that we understand that, here's how the fine structure goes.
Okay.
If you break one of those rules, once again, R428, all the way from 101 all the way down to, there's 34 pages, so you can go down to the very end. And if you break one of those rules, somebody, the public or other, can then turn you into the Arizona Department of Real Estate. Okay?
Interesting.
Once they do that, per statute, ADRE, Arizona Department of Real Estate, can go after that licensee. Not necessarily a realtor. You could be a realtor, There's a good chance you're a realtor, but if you're a licensee, you would fall under the ADRE provisions there, right?
Okay.
Okay.
So, tracking with you.
Yeah. So now that we have that, one of the things that ADRE can do that is very different from the realtor ones, which we'll get into a little bit here, is they have the ability, if they want to go ahead and display names of people who are getting busted.
The obituaries.
The obituary section, which, by the way, I just want to let you know, NAR and, in our case, ARMLS or your local MLS will not do that. I know. And I questioned that one, and I said, I don't understand.
No public shaming?
There's no public shaming, which, by the way, public shaming goes a long ways. I think that they should personally. They don't. And I asked the question, I'm like, well, how come ADRE can do it, but you guys can? And they said, well, you have to be a licensee, but you don't need to be a realtor member, and therefore that's why it's a state entity, very different from a private entity.
What does that have to do with displaying names or, okay.
Because they don't want to do public shaming.
All right.
I know. You're arguing with the wrong person, but yes, I do understand. So, once again, they will public shame you. And when they do that, they're going to put in your name, they're going to put in your license number, they're going to put in your brokerage, and then they're going to put in what you screwed up on, and then they're going to go ahead and put in the last column is going to be what they actually fines they assess to you. And the fines can be anywhere from monetary to extra classes that you need to take, or if they really wanted to, they can literally revoke your license.
You mean the ADRE, the governmental entity, can take away my license?
Yes. Just like if you're going too fast down the 101 or whatever, they can yank your driver's license so you ain't driving again. And ADRE does have the same ability.
So let's clarify this a little bit more for the people who haven't fully understood this concept yet. Why can the ADRE take away my license, but no realtor association can take away my license? Why is that the case?
Because ADRE is the state entity that legally gives you the right to sell real estate in the state of Arizona. And by the way, all 50 states have a Department of Real Estate that issues you a license. So just like the DMV, they're a state entity, and they have the ability to issue you a driver's license or take it away if you get more than, 8 points or something like that? I forgot.
I think it's 6.
Is it 6 now? I don't know. I haven't dragged race in the last ever. So, yeah. So just like any other state entity, they have the... I mean, think about it. It's just like a doctor's association, right? Well,
yeah.
Let me actually take that back. I said a doctor's association, which would mean that it is a association, not a state organization. But the state can yank a doctor's license if they do something bad, right?
If you really screw up.
If you really screw up. So it's just like any other state entity, they have the ability to not only issue, but also to take away.
Okay.
Okay?
Makes sense.
So remember, once you join Realtors, they can kick you out of the Realtors Association, which we'll get to in a little bit, but they can't take away your real estate license.
Okay.
Okay?
I got you.
Yeah.
Hopefully everybody else has got you as well.
Well, if you just go back and you look at the what I call the structure of who does what, and it starts off with Arizona Revised Statutes, it goes down to Arizona Administrative Code for licensees and realtors, and then anything beneath that, which would be NAR at a federal level, at a national level, and then you got our state association. In our case, it would be Arizona Realtors.
Or whatever state you're in.
Or whatever state you're in, right? And then beneath that, you have your local, hyper-local association. So we serve Phoenix, Scottsdale, White Mountains, SVVR, and Sedona. I'm not going to go through all 14 associations. And then you have your local MLS. In our case, it's Arizona Regional MLS. And then beneath that, you would have your brokerage, because they have their own rules. And then beneath that would be your personal standards, which you're not going to fine yourself for that. You're not going to write yourself a ticket for that one, but almost everything else they can fine you for. Even your local your brokerage. I want you to think about this. I remember when I first started real estate, kind of digressing a little bit. I'm going way down the line on this one.
Yeah.
but paperwork. If we didn't turn in our paperwork, our ER, which is right to sell when we took a listing, if we didn't turn it in within 48 hours, we got fined $75.
There's a lot of brokerages that are starting to stack those fines up pretty high.
They are. And I know, and it took me only one time, and they're like, hey, you're getting fined $75. And this is no joke. From that time, 25 years ago, I've never done it since. 48 hours, I promise you, my paperwork is in there because it does stack up. $75, and you didn't turn it in at all. It's $150, and by the time it's like your whole commission is eaten up because of that. So there is a consequence to doing bad things, everybody. So, okay.
Well, these days it's more like $500, not
it's more like
75.
Not 75 anymore. Okay, so let's talk about this. So let's talk about ADRE. We already went over that. They publicly shame you, which is a good thing, right? I think. And basically, and it has a fine structure. So where do those fees go? It's the government, everybody, right? What does the government do with our monies? Okay, no, don't answer that.
Yeah,
don't answer that. Don't answer that. Obviously, they do stay in. I want to say the ADRE coffers, but I think it goes actually into a general fund for the state of Arizona. Either way, it is a state thing. It's state monies.
Either way, they're still happy to take your money.
They're still happy to take your money no matter what. Okay? So that's where that would go, and that's how you get busted for some of those rules. So go look it up. If you have not had a chance, just go Google it, everybody, or search it, whatever search engine you want to do. Arizona Administrative Code, also known as AAC. And actually, if you just do that, you're going to get the whole thing. But if you want to go a little bit more into detail with what we do, it's going to be AAC and then put in R428, and then it will be the title, professions, and then underneath that, just specifically for real estate licensees.
Love it.
Okay.
Did you answer the question on where my realtor fines go off?
No, because we haven't talked about that yet.
Gotcha. Okay. Wanted to make sure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go down. Now remember, once again, I sound like a broken record, and you're like, be quiet, Jeff, I get it. But ARS, right, Arizona Revised Statutes, AAC, Arizona Administrative Code, for licensees and realtors. But anything beyond this, what I'm going to be talking about from here on out, are only for, they're for, if you're a realtor, you have to be a licensee, right? So these are going to be for realtors only, not for licensees only. If you're just a licensee only the first two are going to float your boat. Other than that, boom, it's going to be realtors. Okay. So let's talk about NAR, the National Association of Realtors. We're the largest trade organization in the United States, 1.5 million. We're one of the oldest, 1908, May 8th, if I'm not mistaken, something like that.
It's like May 5th.
It is. It's a May 5th, on 3 days
something
off.
Like that?
Yeah, but I do know that it was 1908. So once they formulated all this and brought up, it wasn't called the National Association at that time, but now it's evolved into that. And so what happened is that they have different rules that basically, we'll talk about fines in a second. Let's talk about the main rules that they have out there, okay?
Okay.
First thing is going to be your Code of Ethics, all 17 articles of them. By the way, if you did not know this, you have to take your mandatory Code of Ethics triennially, which means 3 years, and keep in mind that we just went through, as we're filming this, 2022, 3, 4, December 31st, 2024. Mm-hmm. And then the next 3 years is going to be January 1st of 25, 26, 27. So it'd be December 31st of 2027.
Makes sense.
And then, quick side note, I want to remind you that NAR is also coming out with their new mandatory fair housing class that is also going to be due triennially, starting this year, meaning 2025. So
you got to have that done by the end of 2027.
Correct. And remember, you're like, wait, hold on. I think ADRE requires that as well, and they do in our 24 hours every 2 years. But remember, that's separate from the fair housing that NAR requires. So make sure next time you take a fair housing class, make sure that it kills both birds with the one stone, because if not, you're taking one fair housing class for ADRE, and then you're taking another fair housing class for NAR.
Which may also be for the ADRE.
which would also super suck. So make sure you get 2 in 1. Okay, so we got the 17 articles of the Code of Ethics, yeah?
Yes.
They also have what's called MLS rules. And these come, by the way, a little bit controversial, right? Because it might go away. But these are also MLS rules from NAR that trickle down to the 520 plus MLSs across the United States.
Okay.
Okay.
So is this one of those things where the NAR creates these mandatory rules that every MLS has to follow, or how does that work?
Yes, that's exactly right. So in other words, at the NAR level, they're going to say, hey, by the way, MLSs out there that are realtor owned, some of them are not, you need to abide by this rule, this rule, this rule, this rule, this rule, and then it trickles down to all the MLSs. But what's really interesting about it is that the actual fine structure is up to each individual MLS.
Oh,
I know. Okay.
Huh.
So we got the rules from NAR. They trickle down, but they don't tell you what to fine. Okay? FINE. In other words, what your fine structure is. That's going to be up to each MLS. And you go, well, how do they figure it out? And that's going to be up to their board of directors. So the board of directors will go and they're like, hey, by the way, here's some of the things that we need to abide by. How much do you want to charge? And then the board of directors decides how much they want to charge, and it goes out.
So is it one of those things where the more often and frequent something gets busted, usually the heftier the fine is going to be, and the less often it happens, the more it's going to turn into pennies?
No, it has nothing to do with that. It really has to do with the seriousness of the violation. Now, they're all serious, right? But some are a little bit more serious than others. For example, if you go in to a home with your lockbox key, unannounced, unless it says show and go. If it says show and go, it's a whole different story. But if it doesn't say...
That's fair game at that point.
Yeah, that's fair game. But if it doesn't say show and go, it says please use whatever showing time, aligned showings, whatever different system your MLS uses. Basically, if you go in unannounced, here at ARMLS, it is a $500 fine.
Yikes.
Yeah, and there's a really good chance you're not getting out of it. Now, I want to remind you, that is ARMLS, Arizona Regional MLS. There's other MLSs across the state of Arizona that are $50. Some of them are $100. Some of them are $25.
Well, hang tight for 1 second. Let's go back to the lockbox violations. You know, these things, they're $500 a pop. They're super expensive, but yet they're one of the most common violations that we have in the state of Arizona.
One of them, yeah.
So the big question that I have for you, I think I know the answer to this one, but if somebody violates that rule, how in the world do they get found out? Is it the listing agent looking at their app and then calling up Armless and saying, hey, this person broke into my listing? Or does Armless have some big brother watch over the super app? How does this work?
It's both, but not for that particular violation. Okay. Now, there are violations where Big Brother and AI is watching. I just want to let you know, and we'll go over some of that. And remind me of that if I don't bring it back up. But let's talk about when you go into a home without announcing it. So how could they possibly even find out about it? And what they do is, once again, it is because of the listing agent. They look at their super lockbox. They go, hey, Jerry Brown was in there and he didn't announce it to me with aligned showings, text, email, or even if he did, he didn't get it approved by me, right? It has to be approved by you or the seller. And if they don't do it, seller, listing agents, they get upset, and it's happened to me. And I'm like, what are you doing? And so what would happen is that then we would call up ARMLS or your local MLS, and you show the proof. Here's your super lockbox, not that hard. Here's what it is. And then they basically, get their $500 fine. And to be fair, why is it so expensive? And, here's the thing. I mean, think about all the different things that could happen. Number one, somebody could have a gun.
Yeah.
A homeowner could have a gun, and you're going to die. And I think $500 is better than you getting shot in the chest.
Yeah, but what happens if you get both? Then that just kind of sucks at that point, doesn't it?
You still get the fine afterwards. But think about the other things that could happen. Somebody could be taking a shower. Somebody could be sleeping. There could be somebody underage in there, and then there's just so many different things that could happen. Don't do that, everybody. Just don't do it. Make sure you go through aligned showings, showing times, whatever your other MLS feature may be to show homes, and get it approved. You need that approval back. So that's what it is there.
So is it kind of safe to say, like with a fine like this and most of the other fines that are in place, is it more so meant to be a deterrent because like, hey, we realize this could happen, that could happen. We want to make sure you guys stay safe out there, or is it one of those things where, I don't know, that's kind of what's going through my head.
We want everybody to play on an even playing field. And that's really what it comes down to. If people, let me give you another fine, right? Because we already talked about going into a home, not announced, it wasn't approved, $500. Let's talk about another one. And by the way, if you have never seen this, when you get a chance, I want you to go to your local MLS. Once again, there's 14 associations in the state of Arizona, but this isn't an association thing. It's a MLS thing, because there's a difference between MLSs and associations. There's 14 associations in the state of Arizona. There's 9 MLSs as of super recently, because Sedona recently joined AR MLS, SVVAR's MLS joined us. So now there's 9 MLSs. And you need to look at your hyper-local MLS to see what their fine structure is and some of the rules. Now, once again, some of the rules got trickled down from NAR, so we already know that they're going to be there, and we just want everybody to play on an even field. So this is a great example. Like, we have numbered this one, and it's called 8.23, which, once again, go download the list of violations, everybody, and the number that goes along with it of how much you will get fined. If you get caught, you get busted. So let's talk about 8.23, okay? 8.23, and what it says, where I am, ARMLS, here in the Maricopa County area, it says just media violation. Now, you're like, okay.
That's a broad spectrum.
It is very broad. And then right beside that, it says all prohibited items or misuse of any media. And then it also says unauthorized copied media, which, by the way, I believe is actually going up in price. I think that's going to be going up to $500.
What does unauthorized copied media entail?
Yeah, so let's talk about each one, which, by the way, you can get a description in here. This is just a one-liner, but they do go in a much, much bigger, a deep dive into each of these, what it actually means, okay? So I just want to let you know that. But let's talk about each one. So the one that you asked, unauthorized copied media. You took a listing 3 years ago. You got these beautiful pictures from your professional photographer, and I'm like...
Spent $1.50 on it.
You spent $1.50 on it, and I'm like, hey, those are really good photos. And by the way, I became the listing agent now, and 3 years later, and I'm like, those are really good photos that the previous agent, Jake, did. And sure, I'm just going to copy them over. If you do that, everybody, no. And that's kind of what it is there.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, so that's what that is. But let's talk about some other things. All prohibited items or misuse of any media. Now, you're going to be shaking your head on that one, like, what does that actually mean? Well, what it means is that, and by the way, this is also an NAR mandate that got trickled down. And what it means is that if you put any logo, if you mention your name as the agent or the brokerage, or depending on your MLS, I want to let you know what our MLS did, we now don't allow anything in there, because a lot of times, let's say I hired Joe Smith, professional photographer, and Joe Smith says, hey Jeff, if you want to use my photos in your MLS, you got to brand me in the photo, because they need to know that it's me. You can't even do that anymore. If you brand anybody, yourself or other, you're going to get busted.
But it's my listing. Why can't I advertise myself on my listing that I'm paying to advertise?
Great question. And the reason is, there's a couple of different reasons. Number one, they don't want you to market yourself when it gets syndicated out to the different public-facing portals. Zillow, Redfin, Homes.com, Realtor.com. And because of that, and the other thing that I want to let you know, you're like, well, Jeff, it's still my listing. But guess what you did when you first signed up with ARMLS?
Do tell. What did I do?
You also agreed to abide by their rules, and you also agreed to abide by their fine structure. So, and remember, if you don't like it, I can not be part of ARMLS.
I can go use Zillow's website.
Yeah, correct. And you go directly to Zillow. And by the way, Zillow doesn't have those rules. You can put in whatever you want in Zillow, but you can't do it in ARMLS.
Yikes.
Okay? So I just want to let you know, I don't want to get too much further into this, but there were people who were trying to game the system. And like I'm with, for example, if I was with ABC Realty, you're like, oh my gosh, you can't do that. It's going to be a $200 fine. But other people would be like, what if I put an ABC photography? That's not me. That's my wink, wink photographer. And people were trying to game the system there. So
really?
Really. And so because of that, they go, no more of anything. I don't care who it is. You can't brand the stager. You can't brand the none of that. Oh, and by the way, if you try to get tricky with it and maybe put a wink wink ABC Realty sign in the background, guess what? You're guaranteed getting busted. Okay? So, you remember you asked me earlier on, you said, hey, Jeff, how do people find out? This one is a little bit different. This one will come because of AI and because of humans. So AI, which is very quick, everybody, and it's going to go through and it's going to be like, you put a brokerage in there and you're going to get found out super quick.
So basically they've got AI now going through the MLS, looking at the listings, making sure that my photos are in compliance, and also from what I've heard that my text is in compliance too.
Yes. So let's talk about text really quick, okay? If there's any fair housing violations in there, in other words, guess how you get to my house? Go to the church on the corner, make a right. You might want to refrain from doing that. By the way, I just want to let you know, we're in a predominantly Jewish area. You might want to refrain from that. And so if you do that, I just want to let you know, AI is going through and it will find you guaranteed. And then one other thing about that, ARMLS, hyper local, everybody. Not every MLS has done this, but we also even went further as to what you can and cannot put into ARMLS. In other words, it has to be super relevant to the listings. You can't go off and start talking about other things as well. So I do want to let you know, make sure you go in and you actually read the language, everybody, because it would take way too long to go into this right now. But make sure you know what you can and cannot put in there. I also want to mention one other thing. Let's talk about photos for a second. We're going to go back to photos. Okay, so no ABC Realty, no ABC Photography. Let's talk about humans.
Yeah, no photos of people.
No photos of humans at all. And you're like...
Unless they're in the background of that media.
Let's go into that.
No, that's what Rule 8.23 says.
Well, here's the thing, right? No humans.
Right.
Okay, and you're like, I get that. Can I have a dog? Yeah, if you really want a dog, but remember, we're not selling dogs. Which, by the way, which brings up the point of why no humans. So there's a couple of different reasons why. Number one, we're not selling humans, right? And the other thing is fair housing potential violations. And so,
that's a good point.
And so somebody came up to me and they said, hey, Jeff, I got fined $500 because I took a listing, I went out into the HOA where there's a basketball court, and basically there was a bunch of kids shooting hoops. I'm like, okay. And I got fined. And they're like, what was the reason why? And the reason is because it was a bunch of white kids playing basketball, and they go, so are you saying that the whole community is white? So basically it's fair housing violations. Now, let's go into pictures of humans.
Yes.
Family photos on the wall. And I want you to think about this for a second. I'm going to explain what did happen, and I'll be quick about this, but I want you to think about this. So, by the way, true story. Go look it up, right?
Is this one of those you can't make it up stories?
This is a you can't make it up story.
Okay.
Okay?
All right.
So, we have a family, in California, and they wanted to refinance their home. Good news is that no realtor involved in the making of the story, okay? They wanted to get it refinanced.
You would think that'd be pretty simple.
Super simple, okay? So the appraiser goes in, right? Homeowners are out, and they see pictures of their family who happen to be black. So they see mom, dad, kids, everything else that you would see in a picture. I know. And what happened is that they get the appraisal back, and what they did is they go, wait, we went to Zillow, and when we went to Zillow or Redfin or any other public-facing portal, and we thought that our house was plus or minus 1.5 mil. But for some reason, this appraisal came out at $985,000. Appraisers, we all know.
Yikes.
We all know that you get two appraisers, right? An appraisal is one person's opinion at any given time. And we've seen it before. It's 5, 10, depending on the price of the home, 15, 20,000 off. But $500,000 off on a 1.5 million? If we're talking about a $40 million home, I'll give them that. I'll give them $500,000 off. But when you're talking about a $1.5 million home and you're $500,000 off, 50%, yeah. So, end of the story is that they get another appraiser. Before they do that, they ask their white neighbor to go ahead and put in a picture of their white family, and the new appraiser comes in and he goes, oh yeah, this is also a no-brainer. He's looking at, and it comes out to closer to that 1.5 million. So I just want to let you know.
Hopefully not because of the pictures in the home.
That's exactly why. That's exactly
Wait, so
why.
were both of these appraisers from the same company?
Oh, no. So I don't know if they're from the same company, but bottom line, a different person.
Gotcha.
So the point that I'm trying to make to you is that appraiser number one, let's call him Jim, he comes in there. Appraiser number two, Susan, she goes in there, and they come up with a $500,000 difference. Like, what could have changed from one week to another? And now, I don't want to assume, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but you know what? It looks just a little bit suspicious that we have a black picture in the first one, we have a white picture in the second one. Bottom line is, don't put up pictures and put it in MLS.
Right. Plus, especially when you're putting somebody's house up for sale in the MLS, you want to depersonalize the house anyways, because the buyer wants to walk in there and imagine their stuff in that house, not somebody else's stuff in the house they're looking to buy.
You know, whenever I go and I take a listings, I tell people to take down any religious paraphernalia. I say take down any family photos. And at first, you know, they might get a little bit huffy and they'd be like, I'm not doing that. But I go, here's the thing. We're not here to sell religion. We're not here to sell people. We're not here to sell anybody else. We just want to open up to everybody because people are going to be prejudice out there, right? There's going to be biases regardless, right? And that's kind of what it is.
Even more so than that, you got to take down the political stuff as well.
So this is
that
kind of
stuff's even worse.
This is kind of interesting, right? So remember, political beliefs are not one of the 9 protected classes. Okay, so
right.
technically, could you have a I voted for A or I voted for B? In other words, I voted for D or I voted for R, or I guess if you're independent. So here's the thing. They're not a protected class. So the answer is you can, CAN, do that with some minor things. By the way, I don't want to get into this, but Confederate flag has been known to go ahead and basically be one of the 9 protected classes. So actually don't put up the Confederate flag, but that's a whole different class.
Okay.
No, they've already voted on that one. NAR voted on that one. So no Confederate flag. Okay, so if you used to watch the Dukes of Hazzard, don't put in the top of the car back from the 80s. Just to let you know. Okay. But
I'm more so thinking from the perspective of people getting offended by seeing people's political decor in their house.
So no, and I was coming back to that. So the point that I'm trying to make to you, everybody, is even though a political anything is not a protected class, do you really want to do that? Because either you're going to offend half of the people one way or another. You put up a Democratic flag, you put up a Republican flag. You know that half of your audience are going bye-bye. Why would I even do that? My goal is to sell the house, not to sell.
Not to sell politics.
Yeah,
yes.
not to sell politics.
Perfect sense.
Okay, so hopefully, seriously, that did make sense. So let's go back to this, right? So some of these fines, once again, they start at $50. They go up to $15,000.
How do I get a 15 grand fine?
I knew you were going to ask that question, and great question. That would be if I loan out my lockbox key, not the blue Supra key. Those you can loan out to whatever fellow realtor you want to, fellow agents, right? I'm talking about the key that actually opens up the shackle. That is a no-no. And by the way, we're on the same team. So we're with ABC Realty. We're on the same team. And I want to let you know, don't even loan it to your partner, because that's also a no-no, because it's not you. So your lockbox key that it's on your phone, your Android or your iPhone, is for you and you only.
Okay, I can understand like having issues with myself loaning it out to a member of the general public, especially one who's not a licensee. But why is it a huge problem, aside from the identity stuff, if I just give it to another realtor, like, oh, my phone's not working, can I borrow your key for a second? If I hand them my phone while I'm standing right there and they open up the lockbox using it, is that still going to be a major problem?
I think that, now, this is what I'm thinking on this one. Are you talking about we literally go to the home together and I'm sitting there and watching you open it up?
Yeah, that kind of situation.
I don't know when that would happen, but not unless I'm so lazy that I can't pull out my own phone and do it. I guess I give it to you. If that was the case, which I can't even imagine that happening, but if it was, sure. I mean, I'm right there. I guess maybe it wasn't my fingerprints on it. Yes, but I don't see that ever happening. What I see more of is, oh my gosh, I need to stay here, work on the computer. Would you go open that home for me? You're like, I left my phone at home today. You know what, here, just use my own. I think that is a whole different story.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, that makes sense. And the reason is because, you know, I trust you and everything, but who knows, right? What happens if you go into the home and then suddenly somebody is, you know, literally they cry rape. You're like, oh my gosh, and they look at the lockbox and they go, Jeff Raskin was in there. I'm like, I wasn't in there and I trust him, but I mean, I just think that it can get, I don't know if that's a good example or not, but it can get hairy, everybody. Bottom line is, do not loan out your lockbox key.
Accountability. You want to be accountable for your own actions.
Correct.
Not somebody else trying to make you accountable for theirs.
That's absolutely right. Now, let's talk about some other things. Somebody asked me just yesterday, because I gave a class, and they said, actually, I'm going to go over a couple of more fines. One of them is going to be, okay, let's talk about MLS 8.0 just really quick. Clear cooperation, which, by the way, is being challenged in court right now. Remember, if you market your listing to the public, sign in the front yard, TikTok, Snapchat, Facebook, Insta, any social media platform, and you do not put it in MLS, here it happens to be Flex MLS, but there's different MLS across the country, and if you don't put it in within one business day, it didn't say 24 hours, didn't say 48 hours, it said one business day. So if you market it on Friday, put a sign in the front yard, it have to be on?
By Monday.
Monday. If there's a national holiday on Monday, it would be on?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, there we go. So I want to let you know that there are some caveats, by the way. Coming soon would satisfy that requirement. Rentals are, there's some little caveats here and there, but bottom line is, if you don't do that, it's right here. It's MLS 8.0, called Clear Cooperation. It is a $500 per day fine. So I just want to let you know that one.
Yikes.
They're not messing around with that one. And by the way, you're like, how am I going to get caught? Same thing. AI is not going to do that, because obviously we don't have enough to go to our 22,000 listings and drive by each one to check it out. It's going to be somebody else in the neighborhood, and it's happened many a times. I'm looking at my neighborhood. I'm like, hey, I see that. People ask me in the neighborhood, they're like, Jeff, you're the agent, in the neighborhood. We know you. Hey, would you tell me how much that's worth? Because I can't find it on a Zillow out there. And I'm like, yeah, let me find it out. It might be coming soon, which would not be in a public-facing portal. I look at it, and I can't find it. I'm like, I don't know. Let me call the listing agent, right? I'm like, hey, Joe, it looks like you have your sign out here. What's going on? He's like, they wanted me to put up the sign, and I'll put it in a week or so. Like, it's going to cost you $3,500. Like, what are you talking about? And then, and if they keep it up there then I would
Wait.
have to turn them into ARMLS.
This is not the market that you want to leave a sign or a house off the market in anyways.
That's absolutely right. So I just want to let you know. The other one really quick that I just got asked about the other day is going to be, if you don't go ahead and have a, let's see, and so if you fail to secure a buyer agreement, that would be either the buyer-broker exclusive employment agreement or the buyer-broker showing agreement, right? Per 10.1, it is $500. So in other words, make sure if you're like, I don't know if I want to take out my buyer and just explain to him, let me just show him a couple of homes, just want to see a couple of homes. If you do this and you get caught, and yes, people have been caught, $500 fine.
So why exactly is this a thing? I thought stuff like this was kind of slowly but surely, I know it came out in August, was mandatory, and now I've heard rumors that it's going away. Why is it still, it seems like there's this tug of war going on between having to get an employment agreement signed or not.
So under the current rules of when we're filming this in early 2025, you are right, the Department of Justice, because they've come out and they've said, well, you know, that could also be a violation because now they're stuck to working with you. But when that comes out, that's going to be a whole different story. But right now, it is a rule and you will get fined $500. Make sense?
Makes sense.
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to let you know just one other one because I've seen this before. If you put in per 11.5, if you're with the ARMLS, and 12.1 commissions and bonuses, if you put in any verbiage at all that talk about commissions or bonuses, I just want to let you know that's also going to be a $500 fine. And even, this is interesting, even if you put, by the way, this is a rental, and we're going to go ahead and charge $450 for the application fee. By the way, this is not talking about commissions. You're still going to get in trouble because even though you're not talking about commissions, you put in the word commission, okay? So don't put in the word commissions or compensation or bonuses anywhere in there. Even if you put it's not that, it doesn't matter. The fact that you put in the word, because AI is going to catch it, and when AI catches it, which is going to be seconds later, that's where you get in trouble.
You're toast.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, I've got a little bit of a cough going myself here. Big question at hand. Excuse me, guys. I just got hit with a fine from my realtor association or local MLS or whatever the case may be. Not literally, but figuratively here. How in the world would I go about getting out of this fine? Is there anything I can do to break away from it?
So there's a couple of things you can do, which, by the way, is going to be a lot harder than doing with the ADRE, but we're not talking about ADRE. We're talking about either our realtor association, which I'll talk about in just a second here, from the NAR rules, 17 articles of the Code of Ethics, or the MLS rules that trickle down. And let's talk about, let's either of them, whether it be a realtor rule, right, which are completely different from the MLS rules, even though, you know, it does trickle down from NAR, at least most of them. You can, CAN, go ahead and fight it. Now, every MLS is a little bit different. With ARMLS, it is $50. I'm almost positive about that one. You can go ahead and you can say, hey, I want them to look at it again. And when they look at it, now it's going to go to a group of people. I've been there many times. And there's a chair, and then you got people, and then there's alternates, just kind of like a court, but not 9 people. And basically, and they review it with the appellant there. So in other words, they would sit there and they would go, you know what, I didn't do that. That's not true. Yeah, let me show you why this actually happened. And then they'll vote for it right then and there, and we'll either say, yes, you're still guilty. No, you're not guilty. We can gosh, at that point, we can even give back the $50 if we wanted to. We can reduce the fine from $500 to $200 to teach you a lesson. There's so many different things that they can do, and we've done it. Now, realtors is a little bit different, right? Let's say you get brought up on breaking one of the articles of the Code of Ethics.
Okay.
Now, if you do that, once again, they're going to go through general, hey, yes, you did violate everything. And then what they're going to do is a little bit different. So ARMLS or MLS, they go through their staff to see whether it's a violation or not. And then if somebody wants to refute it, then it comes to us, our court down there. I call it the little court, right? But does not involve MLS staff. So they determine if it is a violation or not, staff does. And then after that, I mean, that's it. Unless you go, nope, I didn't do that, I disagree with that. And then it would come to our little MLS, ARMLS court.
Okay.
Now,
by the way, it's not a kangaroo court.
Yeah, which is not a kangaroo court, although it's not a real court either, right? That's what I call it. So, on the other hand, realtors are a little bit different. This is kind of interesting. Realtors do a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead and accuse realtor Susan Brown that you're in violation of Article 15, right? You threw somebody under the bus, and you just can't say that. They're like, I didn't do that. Well, like, save it for their court, and their court is actually basically a court of their peers. So it's not like it goes to staff first. It actually just goes directly to the system where they get a group of our peers together, and then they determine if it, you know what, hold on, let me back up just a little bit, I'm sorry. Okay, so let's do this one more time. Realtor, it does, this is my bad, so it does go to your local boards, your hyper-local board. We serve Phoenix, Scottsdale, whatever the case may be. And then staff does determine whether one of the articles have been violated. So actually it still goes to staff. So that was my bad. And then after that, they don't assess the fine. So different from ARMLS. So ARMLS assesses the fine. The fine is assessed by the local staff because of the rules that are already in place. Does that make sense?
Yes, perfect.
With realtors, staff determines whether it's a violation or not. They don't determine the fine. Okay? So once they go, yep, we believe you did break one of the articles as a staff, so now we're going to go ahead and send it out to a group of your peers who have been trained on that board, right?
Got to decide how badly you screwed up.
Well, how badly you screwed up is whether you screwed up or not. Not how badly, but just whether you screwed up or not. But that's by staff. And then it goes to a minion of our peers, right? And then when they do that, basically, it's we're going to determine whether whether we agree with staff or not. And then we also get to arbitrarily determine a fine. So different from what I showed you earlier on, these are already set in stone. We already know MLS 8.0, $500. We know that $200. Like, we already know the fine structure, so it's set in stone. There is no, well, unless they refute it, then we could go ahead and mess with it. But other than that, it's already set. That's not the case with the Realtor Association. That the staff just determines whether it can go through or not, and then it's going to be up to us, peers, how much, if any, they want to fine you. Okay. Or if it's really bad, they could do other things like yank you out of NAR. I mean, that has to be like super, super, super horrible. But
can they pull you out of the NAR permanently?
Yes.
Or is it? Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Yeah, and okay. That's what I'm saying. Now, remember, pulling you out of NAR does not mean that you lose your license. We already discussed that, right? Because remember, license is a state entity, whereas NAR is a volunteer organization.
We're choosing to be a part of it.
You're choosing to be part of NAR. So I hope that made sense. Yep. I know it was kind of a roundabout way, but
I'm tracking with you perfectly.
Yeah. Now, I do want to mention one last thing, is that your local association, most of them have their own board. So in other words, you go to the association that the person that you're accusing of, you go to their board, not your own board. So if I'm part of, We Serve, and you're up in Prescott, so Prescott Area Association of Realtors, I'd have to go into Prescott's board to go ahead and file charges against you. And each association has their own, board that looks at it. But a lot of associations nowadays, just because it makes it easier, they've given it to our state association, Arizona Realtors, formerly known as Arizona Association of Realtors, and then they have that body of people that determines whether, they're going to fine you or not for an offense.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So why in the world would I have to go to somebody else's association if they're a part of a different one? Why can't I just go through my own and let them handle it?
Because it's not you who violated the Code of Ethics. So they need to go to their hyper-local association, once again, 14 in Arizona, to determine whether they are, whether they believe that it was a violation of one of the 17 articles of the Code of Ethics.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's what. Oh, one very, very, very last thing. I just want to let you know, because you asked me earlier on, where do the fines actually go?
Yes. Where is my hard-earned compensation going to?
We already talked about ADRE. That goes to the state, right? NAR, it does go directly into the NAR coffers, okay? And I believe, and I'm not sure about this, to be honest with you, I think some of it actually probably goes back to the local, I'm sure it probably goes back to the local association. I do need to check on that, okay? Now, but for your local MLS, I will say this. Some MLSs will just keep it as their own. Like, hey, you got fined, we're going to go ahead and keep it. ARMLS did the following. They say, look, if you break one of our rules and we fine you, we are going to donate every bit. And I'm talking about every hot red cent, because they'll pay us for gas to go down there. They have a stenographer. They'll pay them. It doesn't even come out of that. They're like, hey, we're going to donate every single penny. And it goes to local charities. I just want to let you know. And they've chosen the charities, and that's what that is. The good news is, in the previous few years, about $100,000 worth of fines for ARMLS only. We've dropped down recently to about 30,000. So we've dropped a lot, because I think people are like, I'm not going to get fined again because they suck.
That's still a lot of money.
It's still a lot of money, but still, that's what fines we're looking at.
And I guarantee if any of you ever have to go through the process of getting fined, just like Jeff here, you will never be doing that again.
You'll never do that again. Okay, yeah.
So you did have something you wanted to touch base on with AI, or something that's automated within the MLS.
So, more and more. I mean, look, we have 22,000 listings. Sedona, a heck of a lot less. They're in the hundreds, right? Some of these other ones, Green Valley, they have even less, and so on and so on. We have a lot down here, right? We have 42,000 subscribers, right? They're not called members, they're called subscribers who belong to ARMLS. We have a lot of listings, 22,000. It would be impossible for a human to go through all that, although they definitely do have a department down there at ARMLS, a big staff crew that does these things to make sure that you will get fined and you'll get busted if you do anything. So I know the people down there, they're very, very professional and very efficient in what they do, but they still can't go through 22,000 listings every single time. So what they do is they're relying on us, because we're a self-policing industry. And then also, once again, AI, words in there. Promise you, no human is reading what you're writing, but AI will figure it out like really, really fast. Yeah.
Actually, real quick, you brought up a really interesting point, how this industry is a self-policing industry.
100%.
And it is super important that when we see something, say something. Of course, you want to approach the agent first and say, hey, did you know that you're wrong in this area, or something needs to get cleaned up or changed, or your brokerage logo is not being put on display, whatever the case may be. If it comes to a point where I have to turn an agent into the ADRE or my local realtor association, whatever the case may be, if I do turn them in, is there any kind of backlash that they can come back and try and get me with? Because I think that creates a lot of fear within people to turn other people in when something goes wrong.
It does, and that is a beautiful question, okay? Here's one of the issues with I wish they would do, and that is called reporting people anonymously, right? They have the police have the silent witness and you don't need to disclose because you're worried about the backlash. Very, very unfortunately, most of the entities that I just discussed make you put in your name. So they're going to know who it is. It's with ADRE that you have to put in your name, and the other person will know. Some of them, they say, okay, we aren't going to disclose who it is unless they ask, and then they have to tell them. So does it create some problems? 100%. I know somebody, one of my realtor buddies, and he works in a small community. He lists about 40% of the properties over there. They all know each other. And I know that in one of the communities, there's one person, one realtor, who breaks the rules all the time. And he goes, Jeff, if I turn this lady in again, or man, whatever it is, I mean, she already hates me. Now it's just going to, and
it just makes things worse.
Yeah, and so I get it. That's another thing I'm not sure if I agree with. I think you should be able to turn in people anonymously so that, you don't have to worry about backlash. But that is a great question.
Well, of course, it's fair for you to have to give your contact information for that entity to be able to reach out to you.
Right.
But I'm not sure about having to give that out to people. So with that, anything else you want to add in about fines or rules or anything else that sticks out to you?
Yes. Don't break the rules.
That's a great place to start. That is a phenomenal place to start.
No, other than that, I think I went in enough detail of everything just to show you what entities do, what the fine structure, where you're going to get your name in, bold letters with lights blinking around it and where you aren't. I think I gave you a really, really good overview, but if you have any questions, you could find out in one of our classes, or you could go ahead and just put in, the notes down below, whatever platform you're watching on, or just email us and we can go from there. There's our information as well, so.
Yeah, definitely be sure to check out our website at techforre.com. You may or may not be watching this or listening to it right there. But with that, guys, we will see you in our next episode of the Tech 4 podcast.